My name is Melissa, 28, and I thought I was just stopping by my parents' house for our pre-Christmas gathering. As I headed to the bathroom, I overheard my siblings and cousins planning to use me as free childcare for their 9 kids while they enjoyed a child-free Christmas party. Apparently, being single with a career means I have no real commitments worth respecting. After years of being the family doormat, something inside me finally snapped. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to your family. Growing up as the middle child in the Bennett family meant one thing: responsibility without recognition. From an early age, I was the reliable one, the peacekeeper, the one who could always be counted on to step up when needed. My older brother Jackson was the golden child who could do no wrong, while my younger sister Natalie was the baby who needed protecting. I was just there. Capable. Dependable. Invisible. This dynamic didn't change as we grew up. If anything, it intensified. While my siblings pursued their dreams with our parents' unwavering support, I worked through college, built my career in marketing, and eventually landed an executive position at one of the top firms in Boston. You'd think my family would be proud, but my achievements were always treated as secondary to my brother's career as a doctor or my sister's life as a stay-at-home mom. "When are you going to settle down and start a real family?" my mother would ask, as if my life's purpose was on hold until I produced grandchildren. Never mind that I had just been promoted to marketing director at age 28, something virtually unheard of in my field. My extended family wasn't any better. Between my siblings, 3 cousins, and their respective spouses, there were 9 children in total, ranging from toddlers to pre-teens. Family gatherings had become chaotic affairs centered entirely around the kids, with the unspoken expectation that I would help wrangle them because, as my Aunt Patricia once put it, it's not like you have your own to worry about. Last Easter, I spent the entire day organizing an egg hunt, supervising crafts, and mediating squabbles while the other adults relaxed. At my nephew's birthday party, I was stationed at the bounce house for 4 hours straight. During Thanksgiving, I was on kitchen duty while others watched football. Each time, I told myself it was just easier to go along with what was expected of me. My small apartment in the city had become my sanctuary. It was modern, organized, and entirely mine. When I closed that door behind me, I could finally breathe. No demands, no expectations, no one taking me for granted. I had built a life I loved, close friends who valued me, colleagues who respected me, and finally, the financial freedom to enjoy the fruits of my labor. That's why this year was supposed to be different. After landing the biggest client of my career and receiving a substantial bonus, I decided to gift myself something special: a Christmas trip to Hawaii. 2 weeks of sunshine, relaxation, and self-care, something I'd been dreaming about for years. I had booked an ocean view room at a luxury resort, scheduled a sunrise volcano tour, and even signed up for surfing lessons. I was so excited about my plans that I'd actually started packing 3 weeks early. My swimsuits were laid out, new sundresses hung ready in my closet, and I'd even bought special reef-safe sunscreen for snorkeling. This trip wasn't just a vacation, it was a declaration of independence, a statement that my time and happiness mattered too. I hadn't told my family about Hawaii yet. A part of me knew they wouldn't understand or appreciate why I needed this. Instead, I planned to announce it at our pre-Christmas gathering, 2 weeks before the actual holiday. I imagined they'd be surprised but supportive, maybe even a little impressed by my adventurous spirit. How naive I was. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The pattern was set long ago, and I had played my part perfectly for years. The reliable Melissa. The always available Melissa. The Melissa who never says no. But patterns can be broken. People can change. And sometimes, all it takes is overhearing a single conversation to realize just how much you've been taken for granted. The day of the pre-Christmas gathering arrived, and true to form, I showed up perfectly prepared. My car was loaded with carefully wrapped presents for each family member, thoughtful gifts I'd spent weeks selecting. I'd baked 3 different kinds of cookies, prepared a massive dish of my famous mac and cheese, a family favorite, and even brought extra folding chairs since my mother always complained we never had enough seating. As I struggled up the walkway, arms laden with packages and food, my brother Jackson breezed past me with a casual, "Hey, Mel," not even pausing to hold the door. Inside, the house was already in full holiday chaos. Christmas music competed with the sounds of children shrieking, adults talking over one another, and the TV blasting a football game in the background. "Melissa's here," my mother called out half-heartedly before immediately turning back to cooing over my sister's youngest. No one came to help me with my burdens. I made 3 trips to the car while family members lounged on couches, engrossed in conversations that didn't pause to include me. "Just put the gifts under the tree, honey," my father said, not looking away from the game. "And can you take those cookies to the kitchen?" Your mother rearranged everything again, so good luck finding where they go. After setting everything down and greeting each family member, most of whom responded with distracted half-smiles, I headed to the bathroom for a moment of peace. The hallway to the guest bathroom passed by the den, where the door was partially open. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but my cousin Rachel's voice caught my attention. "So we're all set for Christmas, right? The adults-only party at our place is going to be amazing." My sister Natalie's voice responded excitedly, "God, I can't wait. A full day without kids underfoot is exactly what I need. And we're sure Melissa will watch all the kids." This was my cousin Emma's voice, slightly concerned. Jackson laughed. "Are you kidding? Of course she will. She doesn't have real plans anyway. She never does. But did anyone actually ask her yet?" Emma again, sounding uncomfortable. "Why bother?" Rachel said dismissively. "She always says yes. Besides, it's not like she has a family of her own to worry about. What else would she do on Christmas? I think if we all drop the kids at my parents' house and just tell Melissa we need her help, she won't say no," Natalie added. "Especially once the kids are all excited about spending Christmas with Aunt Melissa. She's such a pushover." 9 kids is a lot, though," Emma said. "She'll manage," Jackson replied. "She always does. And this way, we all get to have actual adult fun on Christmas for once. No kids, no responsibilities, just alcohol and grown-up conversation. To freedom." Rachel laughed, and I heard the clink of glasses. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. My heart pounded in my ears as the reality of what I was hearing sank in. They weren't just taking advantage of me, they were actively planning to manipulate me, counting on my inability to say no, laughing about what a pushover I was. The worst part? They hadn't even considered that I might have my own plans. The Hawaii trip that meant so much to me, that I'd been saving for and dreaming about, didn't even register as a possibility in their minds. In their world, single Aunt Melissa existed solely to make their lives easier. I felt a hot flush of anger rise from my chest to my face. For a moment, I considered bursting into the room and confronting them on the spot. But something held me back. A lifetime of keeping the peace, perhaps. Or maybe the strategic part of my brain that had made me successful in my career was already formulating a different approach. Taking a deep breath, I continued to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. "Not this time," I whispered to my reflection. "Not this Christmas." I returned to the gathering with new eyes, determined to observe the rest of the day through this enlightened lens. Would I see more evidence of how they planned to use me? How would they start setting up their scheme? And most importantly, how would I respond when they did? Returning to the living room felt like stepping onto a stage in a play where everyone knew their lines except me. Only now, I was starting to read between the lines of the script I'd been handed. Every interaction suddenly had new meaning, new subtext I could finally perceive. My mother immediately waved me over. "Melissa, be a dear and help the kids make their Christmas cookies. I set everything up in the kitchen, but they need supervision with the decorations." Not, "Would you mind helping?" or "Do you have time to assist?" Just an assumption that I would drop whatever I was doing to manage someone else's children. I nodded automatically, a lifetime habit, but this time I noticed my sister-in-law Jennifer comfortably settling deeper into the couch, phone in hand, not even pretending to offer help with her own children. For the next hour, I helped 5 sugar-fueled kids create increasingly messy cookie masterpieces. Frosting ended up in hair, sprinkles covered the floor, and I intercepted at least 3 attempts to eat raw cookie dough. Meanwhile, adult laughter drifted in from the living room, where everyone else was enjoying uninterrupted conversation. When I finally emerged, wiping food coloring from my hands, my father looked up briefly. "There she is. Kitchen all cleaned up, too, I hope?" It wasn't a question, it was an expectation. I had, of course, already cleaned everything, a fact no one acknowledged. Rachel sidled up to me as I sank into an armchair, exhaustion already setting in. "You're so good with the kids, Mel. They just adore you." "They're great kids," I replied neutrally, watching her face for signs of her ulterior motives. "Speaking of which," she continued, right on cue, "what are your Christmas plans this year? Anything exciting?" Her tone suggested she already knew the answer would be nothing worth hearing. "Actually, I do have some special plans this year," I said, curious to see her reaction. A flash of alarm crossed her face before she recovered. "Oh? Like what? You coming to Mom and Dad's as usual, right?" "We'll see," I said vaguely, secretly enjoying her discomfort. "I'll share more at dinner." Throughout the afternoon, I caught snippets of my family members setting their plan in motion. My brother asking my parents if they'd be okay hosting a few extra people on Christmas Day. My sister showing my mother a new cocktail recipe she wanted to try for their special event. My cousin's husband discussing designated drivers for the adults-only party. I observed the children too, with new perspective. 9 kids in total, Jackson's 3 boys, ages 10, 8, and 5, all bursting with energy and constantly roughhousing. Natalie's twin 4-year-old girls and 18-month-old son who was going through a biting phase, Rachel's 7-year-old daughter who had recently developed a habit of dramatic sobbing over the smallest disappointments, Emma's 6-year-old son who was painfully shy and required constant coaxing to participate in group activities, and her 3-year-old daughter who was in the midst of potty training with frequent accidents. The thought of managing all 9 of them, alone, for an entire day, on Christmas no less, made my stomach tighten. It would be a nightmare of competing needs, tears, fights, meals, and messes, with no time to even take a bathroom break. And my family wasn't planning to just ask for this enormous favor, they were planning to orchestrate a situation where I couldn't say no without looking like the villain who ruined Christmas for the children. As the day progressed, I noticed my mother watching me with the kids, nodding approvingly. "You know, Melissa," she said during a rare quiet moment, "sometimes I think you missed your calling. You should have been a teacher or a daycare provider." "I love my career, Mom," I replied firmly. "Marketing challenges me intellectually and creatively. Plus, I just landed the Johnson account, which is huge for our firm." "That's nice, dear," she said dismissively. "But there's nothing like the fulfillment of shaping young lives." She patted my arm before walking away, not waiting for my response. It struck me that my family had created a narrative about me, the spinster aunt whose career was just a placeholder until real life, i.e., marriage and children, happened. In their story, my time wasn't valuable, my achievements weren't significant, and my needs weren't important. I was a secondary character in the family drama, useful mainly as a supporting role to the main characters with their real adult lives. As dinner approached, I felt a strange calm settling over me. Years of resentment crystallized into clarity. I had allowed this dynamic to persist by never challenging it, by prioritizing harmony over honesty, by fearing disapproval more than I valued my own needs. Not anymore. As we gathered around the dining table laden with holiday foods, I mentally rehearsed what I needed to say. My Hawaii plans weren't just about a vacation anymore, they were about standing up for myself and changing a lifelong pattern. I straightened my shoulders and took a deep breath, ready for the confrontation I knew was coming. Dinner began like all family dinners in the Bennett household, chaotically. Kids squirmed in their seats, adults talked over one another, and my father complained about the temperature of the ham. I sat quietly, picking at my food, waiting for the moment I knew was coming. It arrived halfway through the meal, right on schedule. "So," my sister Natalie announced, clinking her glass dramatically to get everyone's attention. "Rachel and I have been planning something special for the adults this Christmas." Excited glances were exchanged around the table, by everyone except me and Emma, who looked slightly uncomfortable. "We're having an adults-only Christmas party," Rachel continued. "At my place, starting at noon on Christmas Day. No kids allowed, just grown-ups enjoying cocktails, conversation, and a proper holiday meal without having to cut anyone's food or clean up spilled juice." "Sounds amazing," Jackson's wife Jennifer said. "I can't remember the last time we had a Christmas without kid chaos." "Where will the children be during this sophisticated soiree?" my father asked, amused. "Well," Natalie said, her eyes sliding toward me, "we thought they could all have their own special Christmas party here, with Melissa in charge of the festivities." All eyes turned to me. The table fell momentarily silent, expectant smiles on every adult face except Emma's. This was it, the moment they'd been setting up all day, where I was supposed to smile and nod and agree to sacrifice my holiday for everyone else's enjoyment. "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I expected, "I won't be available on Christmas Day. I'm going to Hawaii." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the children seemed to sense something had shifted in the adult world. "Hawaii?" my mother finally sputtered. "What do you mean, Hawaii?" "I booked a 2-week vacation to Hawaii, leaving on December 22nd and returning January 5th. I'm staying at the Royal Hawaiian on Waikiki Beach." I took a sip of water, maintaining eye contact with my sister. "I've been planning this trip for months. It's my Christmas gift to myself." Rachel recovered first. "But Melissa, you can't just..." "I mean, we've already made all these plans." "Plans that involved me but didn't include me in the planning," I pointed out calmly. "I overheard your conversation in the den earlier. You were going to dump 9 kids on me without even asking because you assumed I had nothing better to do with my holiday." Guilty glances darted around the table. Jackson cleared his throat. "Come on, Mel, it's not like that. We just thought." "You thought I'd say yes because I always say yes," I finished for him. "You counted on me being a pushover, and you were all laughing about it." "I heard you." "You were eavesdropping on us?" Natalie accused, trying to shift the blame. "I was walking to the bathroom and overheard you planning to manipulate me." "There's a difference." I kept my voice level, determined not to let emotion derail my stand. "But the kids were so looking forward to spending Christmas with you," Jennifer tried, prompting the first genuine laugh I'd had all day. "None of your children even know about these plans yet," I said. "You literally just announced them 2 minutes ago." My father, looking confused, turned to my mother. "Patricia, did you know about Melissa's trip?" "Of course not," my mother said, her voice strained. "She never mentioned any trip to Hawaii. If she had, we would have told her that Christmas is for family, not selfish solo vacations." And there it was, the guilt trip, right on cue. I took another sip of water before responding. "I'm 28 years old, Mom. I don't need permission for my travel plans. And it's not selfish to want to spend one Christmas doing something special for myself after years of putting everyone else first." "But who's going to watch the children now?" Rachel demanded, as if her childcare emergency trumped my long-established plans. "That sounds like a problem for their parents to solve," I replied evenly. Jackson's face reddened. "So you're just abandoning your family at Christmas?" "Real nice, Melissa. Real nice. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing to spend my hard-earned vacation time and money on a trip I've been dreaming about for years. The fact that you all assumed I had no plans without bothering to ask me says more about how you see me than it does about my commitment to this family." The tension around the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. My mother looked like she might cry, my father appeared bewildered, and my siblings and cousins ranged from angry to embarrassed. Only Emma gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod of support. Well, my mother finally said, I think we should all take some time to digest this news. Perhaps after Melissa has thought about it more, she'll reconsider. I'm not reconsidering, Mom. My flight is booked, my hotel is reserved, and I've already scheduled excursions. I'm going to Hawaii for Christmas. Dinner concluded in awkward silence. As we moved to the living room for dessert, my 7-year-old niece Lily approached me. Aunt Melissa, she whispered, tugging on my sleeve, Mommy told me yesterday that you're going to babysit all of us on Christmas while the grown-ups have a special party. She said we'd make cookies and watch movies and you'd sleep over and we'd open presents together in the morning. I felt a fresh wave of anger. They had already told the children about their plan, creating expectations that would make me the villain when I refused. It was manipulative on a level I hadn't even imagined. I'm sorry, sweetie, I said, kneeling to her level. I actually have a special trip planned for Christmas this year. But maybe we can have our own special day together after I get back? Her bottom lip trembled slightly, but she nodded. Will you bring me something from your trip? Absolutely, I promised, giving her a hug before walking out to my car, needing fresh air and a moment alone. Standing in the cold December evening, I leaned against my car and took deep breaths. The confrontation had gone both better and worse than I'd expected. I hadn't lost my temper, but I also hadn't managed to make them understand my perspective. Instead, I was now cast as the selfish, family-abandoning villain in their narrative. But for the first time in my adult life, I didn't care what role they assigned me. I was writing my own story now. The drive home from my parents' house was surreal. Christmas music played softly on the radio as I replayed the dinner confrontation in my mind, analyzing every word, every reaction. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, my phone was already lighting up with messages. I ignored them until I was inside, coat hung up and a glass of wine poured. Then, with a deep breath, I sat on my couch and began reading. From Natalie, I can't believe you're doing this to us. We've been planning this party for months. You're ruining Christmas for everyone. From Jackson, real mature, Mel. Way to think about someone besides yourself for once. From Mom, please call me as soon as you get this. We need to discuss your announcement and find a solution that works for everyone. From Dad, your mother is very upset. Call home. The family group chat had exploded with messages, each more guilt-laden than the last. Rachel suggested I could still do the right thing and change my plans. Jennifer pointed out how disappointed the children would be. My mother wondered aloud what she had done to deserve a daughter who would abandon her family during the holidays. I scrolled through them all, a strange detachment settling over me. These tactics had worked on me for years, the guilt, the expectations, the subtle and not-so-subtle manipulation. But something had fundamentally shifted inside me. Their words could no longer reach the part of me that had always crumpled under family pressure. Then, a private message from Emma appeared. I think what you did was brave. They shouldn't have planned to use you like that without asking. Enjoy Hawaii, it sounds amazing. That single message was like oxygen. At least one person in my family could see the situation clearly, could recognize that I deserved to make my own choices without apologizing for them. I set my phone down without responding to anyone and gazed around my apartment. Every corner reflected my personality, my achievements, my independence. The framed marketing awards on the wall. The bookshelf filled with novels and industry guides. The photos of friends who valued me, trips I'd taken on my own, moments of joy I'd created for myself. When had I started believing that my life was less valid than my siblings' lives? When had I accepted that my time was less valuable, my choices less important, my happiness secondary? I thought back to childhood, when being the helpful middle child had earned me rare parental approval. Melissa's such a good helper, they'd say, while Jackson got praised for his grades and Natalie for her cuteness. I'd internalized that role, the helper, the reliable one, the one who made everyone else's lives easier at the expense of her own needs. But I wasn't a child anymore, seeking parental approval. I was an accomplished adult who deserved respect, consideration, and the right to prioritize my own happiness sometimes. I opened my laptop and pulled up the itinerary for my Hawaii trip, reminding myself of all the experiences awaiting me: the luxury ocean view room, the sunrise volcano tour, surfing lessons, a traditional luau, snorkeling in crystal clear waters. I'd even scheduled a professional photo shoot on the beach, just for me, to commemorate this act of self-care and independence. My phone buzzed again with more family messages, but I ignored them. Instead, I opened a blank document and began typing, carefully crafting a response that was firm but not unkind, clear but not cruel. I worked through multiple drafts, deleting passive-aggressive jabs and softening harsh truths, until I had a message I felt good about sending. "Dear family," I wrote. "I understand you're disappointed about my Christmas plans, but I need you to understand something important. I made these plans months ago, investing considerable money and vacation time into a trip that means a lot to me. The fact that none of you considered I might have plans of my own before deciding I would provide free childcare for 9 children is hurtful and reveals a pattern I can no longer ignore. For years, I prioritized your needs above my own. I've shown up, helped out, and been there whenever asked, often sacrificing my own time and opportunities to do so. I've done this gladly because I love you all. But love should be reciprocal, and respect should be mutual. I'm not going to change my Christmas plans. I will be in Hawaii from December 22nd to January 5th, and I'm looking forward to this experience. I purchased gifts for everyone which I'll drop off before I leave. I hope this can be a moment of growth for all of us. I need more balance in our family dynamic moving forward, where my time and choices are respected the same way I've always respected yours. I love you all, and I wish you a wonderful holiday season. Melissa." I read it over one final time, took a deep breath, and hit send to the family group chat. Then I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb, opened my Hawaii guidebook, and spent the rest of the evening planning snorkeling locations, completely at peace with my decision. The responses began trickling in the next morning. Some were predictably defensive. Jackson insisted I was blowing everything out of proportion and that no one meant any harm. Natalie accused me of being melodramatic and suggested I was just looking for attention. My mother's response was a long paragraph about family obligations and how children should respect their parents' wishes, regardless of age. But there were surprises too. My father, usually a passive participant in family drama, sent a private message saying he hadn't realized how one-sided things had become and that he was proud of me for speaking up. Emma wrote a supportive response, admitting she'd felt uncomfortable with the plan all along but hadn't had the courage to say anything. And Rachel's husband Tom sent an unexpected apology, acknowledging they had indeed taken advantage of my good nature over the years. The most shocking response came 3 days later, when my sister-in-law Jennifer called. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began awkwardly. "And, you're right. We did take advantage of you. I guess we just got so used to you always being there that we stopped seeing it as a favor and started seeing it as, I don't know, your role or something. That wasn't fair." Her candor caught me off guard. "Thank you for saying that, Jen. It means a lot. The boys are really going to miss seeing their aunt on Christmas," she added, and I braced myself for another guilt trip. But then she surprised me again. "So I was wondering if we could maybe FaceTime you in Hawaii for a few minutes on Christmas morning? Just so they can say hi and thank you for their gifts. No pressure, just if you have time." It was a small gesture, but it felt like a significant shift. "I'd love that," I told her. "I'll be thinking of them while I'm away." By the time I began packing for Hawaii in earnest, a week before my departure, the initial family outrage had largely subsided. New childcare arrangements had been made, a rotation system where each set of parents would take turns watching the children during the adults-only party, which had been shortened to just a few hours instead of all day. Not ideal from their perspective, but certainly more fair. I had one more obligation before I could truly focus on my trip, delivering the Christmas presents I'd purchased for everyone. I decided to drop them off at my parents' house the weekend before my departure, hoping for a brief, drama-free exchange. "You're doing the right thing," my best friend Diane assured me over coffee the morning I planned to deliver the gifts. "Stay strong. Don't let them guilt you into changing your mind at the last minute. Diane had been my staunchest supporter throughout this ordeal, validating my feelings and reinforcing my resolve whenever it wavered. She'd even helped me wrap all the presents the night before, turning the task into a wine and movie night that left me feeling fortified for the impending family encounter. I won't, I promised her. My flight leaves in 3 days. Nothing they say can change that. Text me when you're done so I know you survived, she joked, but we both knew there was genuine concern behind her words. The drive to my parents' house felt different this time. Instead of the usual anxious anticipation, I felt calm and in control. I had 9 carefully wrapped packages in my trunk, each selected with thought and care despite the current tension. Jackson's boys were getting science kits tailored to their ages and interests. Natalie's twins were receiving matching dress-up sets they'd been coveting, while her toddler got a stuffed animal that sang lullabies. Rachel's daughter was getting a craft set for making friendship bracelets, and Emma's children were getting books and puzzles I knew they'd love. For the adults, I'd chosen gift cards to their favorite restaurants, practical, appreciated, and requiring minimal interaction on my part. My parents received a photo album I'd spent weeks compiling, featuring family moments from throughout the years. Despite everything, I wanted them to know I valued our family history, even as I worked to change our future dynamic. I pulled into the driveway, noting fewer cars than usual, a good sign that not everyone had gathered to ambush me. Taking a deep breath, I began unloading the gifts. My mother answered the door, her expression a careful neutral. "Melissa. We weren't expecting you." "I just came to drop off the Christmas presents," I explained, gesturing to the bags in my hands. "I wanted to make sure everyone had something to open on Christmas morning." Her face softened slightly. "That was thoughtful. Come in, your father's in the den." The house was quiet, almost eerily so compared to the usual chaos. I followed her inside, setting the bags down by the tree. "Is it just you two today?" I asked, arranging the packages under the branches. "Jackson and Jennifer brought the boys over earlier, but they've gone to the mall now. Natalie might stop by later with the twins." She hovered nearby, watching me work. "Would you like some coffee?" The offer surprised me. It was the first normal, non-guilt-laden interaction we'd had since the confrontation. "That would be nice, thank you." My father emerged from the den as I was accepting a mug from my mother. "There she is," he said, his tone light but cautious. "The world traveler." I tensed, waiting for the criticism, but instead he sat down and asked, "So tell me about this Hawaii trip. Where exactly are you staying?" For the next 15 minutes, I found myself describing my itinerary to both parents, who listened with what seemed like genuine interest. My mother even took notes when I mentioned the name of a restaurant I was excited to try, saying she'd always wanted to visit Hawaii herself. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start, a conversation where they treated me like an adult with valid choices rather than a disobedient child who needed correction. As I was preparing to leave, the front door burst open and Jackson's 3 boys tumbled in, followed by my brother and sister-in-law. "Aunt Melissa," 10-year-old Ethan exclaimed. "Mom said you're going to Hawaii. Will you see real volcanoes?" "I am, and I will," I confirmed, smiling at his enthusiasm. "I'll take lots of pictures to show you when I get back." I heard people in Hawaii say aloha instead of hello and goodbye, 8-year-old Noah added importantly. "And they put pineapple on everything." "I'll have to investigate and report back," I promised, ruffling his hair. Jackson approached as the boys ran off to find their grandfather. "Hey, Mel." He looked uncomfortable. "Can we talk for a minute?" We stepped onto the front porch for privacy, the December cold nipping at our faces. "I owe you an apology," he said after a moment, surprising me completely. "Jennifer and I talked a lot after your message, and she helped me see some things more clearly. We have been taking you for granted. I think because you've always been so capable, so together, it was easy to assume you'd always step in whenever we needed you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Anyway, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. And I hope you have a great time in Hawaii. You deserve it." He hesitated, then added, "The boys and I put together a little Hawaii survival kit for you. It's nothing fancy, just some sunscreen, a beach book, one of those folding fans for when it gets too hot. It's in the car if you want it." The gesture, so unexpected and thoughtful, brought tears to my eyes. "I would love that. Thank you." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Natalie was still barely speaking to me, and Rachel had sent a terse message saying she understood my decision but was disappointed in my priorities. My mother continued to make occasional comments about breaking family traditions and putting vacation over family. But as I finished packing my suitcase the night before my early morning flight, I felt no regret, only a growing excitement. The gifts had been delivered, the difficult conversations had been had, and in less than 24 hours, I would be on a plane headed for paradise. I checked in online, confirmed my airport shuttle, and set 2 alarms to ensure I wouldn't oversleep. Then I stood in front of my closet, running my hands over the bright sundresses, swimsuits, and casual clothes I'd be wearing for the next 2 weeks. Clothes for a woman who prioritized her own joy. Clothes for a holiday centered around my desires, my needs, my happiness. The next morning, as the plane accelerated down the runway and lifted into the clouds, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in my adult life, I had set a boundary with my family and held it despite their disapproval. I had chosen myself, and the sky hadn't fallen. In fact, it was bright blue and beckoning me toward new horizons. Stepping off the plane in Honolulu felt like entering another world. The air was warm and fragrant with tropical flowers, so different from the bitter Boston winter I'd left behind. A woman placed a traditional lei around my neck, the fresh plumeria blossoms cool against my skin. "Aloha," she said warmly. "Welcome to Hawaii." Despite my excitement, I couldn't completely shake the lingering sense of guilt as I settled into the taxi to my hotel. Years of family conditioning had taught me that my own happiness should always come second to others' needs. The voice in my head, sounding suspiciously like my mother, whispered that I was being selfish, that I should have stayed home, that I was ruining everyone's Christmas. I pushed the thoughts away as we pulled up to the Royal Hawaiian, its iconic pink facade glowing in the afternoon sun. This was my time. I deserved this. My ocean view room was everything I'd dreamed of, spacious, elegant, with a balcony overlooking Waikiki Beach. I stepped out and watched the surfers riding waves, tourists lounging on the sand, palm trees swaying in the gentle breeze. The scene was so peaceful, so removed from family drama and expectations, that I felt myself truly exhale for the first time in weeks. The first few days of vacation passed in a blur of simple pleasures. I slept in without alarms, ate breakfast on my balcony, spent hours reading on the beach, and tried local foods without worrying about anyone else's preferences. I signed up for a beginner surfing lesson, laughing as I repeatedly fell into the warm ocean water before finally managing to stand on the board for a few exhilarating seconds. On Christmas Eve, I found myself sitting alone at a beachfront restaurant, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Around me, other tables were filled with families and couples celebrating together. For a moment, loneliness crept in. Was I making a mistake? Should I have compromised, found a way to spend at least part of the holiday with my family? My phone buzzed with a text from Emma, "Thinking of you tonight. Hope Hawaii is everything you dreamed. Merry Christmas." Attached was a photo of her children in matching pajamas, grinning at the camera. The simple acknowledgement of my choice without criticism brought tears to my eyes. I texted back a beach sunset photo and my own Christmas wishes. Christmas morning arrived with perfect weather and a strange mixture of emotions. I had arranged a sunrise yoga class on the beach, followed by a traditional Hawaiian breakfast. As I moved through the poses with the sun warming my skin, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was exactly where I was supposed to be. After breakfast, I returned to my room to FaceTime with Jackson's boys as promised. Their excited faces filled my screen as they showed me their new toys and described their morning in breathless detail. Jennifer appeared briefly to wish me Merry Christmas, and even Jackson waved from the background. There was no mention of childcare or changed plans, just a normal, pleasant holiday exchange. We miss you, Aunt Melissa," Noah declared before hanging up, and I realized with surprise that I missed them too, but in a healthy way, not out of obligation or guilt. The rest of the day I spent on a Christmas snorkeling tour, marveling at colorful fish and coral reefs in the crystal-clear water. Our guide, a native Hawaiian woman named Leilani, spoke about the importance of family in Hawaiian culture but also about balance and respect within those relationships. In Hawaiian tradition, she told me when I mentioned my situation, family is everything. But true ohana, true family, uplifts each member, recognizes their mana, their power and spirit. Your mana matters too. Her words stayed with me through the following days as I explored volcanoes, hiked to waterfalls, attended a traditional luau, and experienced the natural beauty of the islands. With each new adventure, I felt myself growing stronger, more confident in my choices, more comfortable in my own skin. I posted photos on social media occasionally, not to make my family jealous but to document my experiences. To my surprise, my mother commented on one sunset picture, "Beautiful. Your father and I should visit someday." It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement, progress in its way. Halfway through my trip, I received an unexpected call from Natalie. Bracing myself for criticism, I answered cautiously. "Before you say anything," she began, "I'm calling to apologize. You were right. We were totally taking advantage of you, and it wasn't fair." Speechless, I waited for her to continue. "The adults-only party was a disaster," she admitted with a rueful laugh. "Everyone was stressed about watching the kids in shifts, the children were upset about the constant transitions, and we all ended up leaving early anyway. It made me realize how much we've been depending on you to make our lives easier, without considering what you needed." "Thank you for saying that," I said, genuinely touched. "That means a lot to me. Plus," she added, "Emma ripped us all a new one after you left. She said we've been treating you like the family nanny instead of a sister and cousin." She was right. We talked for nearly an hour, a real conversation where she asked about my trip and actually listened to my answers. Before hanging up, she said something that stuck with me. "I think I've been a little jealous of your freedom, to be honest. I love my kids, but sometimes I forget who I am outside of being their mom. Seeing you take this trip for yourself, it's inspired me." The second week of my vacation took on a different quality after that conversation. I still enjoyed every moment of Hawaiian paradise, but I also found myself thinking about my return with a new perspective. I wasn't dreading it anymore. Instead, I was curious about how our family dynamic might evolve now that I'd broken our unhealthy pattern. For New Year's Eve, I joined a group of travelers I'd met during a tour for a beach celebration. As midnight approached and we all stood with champagne glasses raised to the star-filled sky, I made a silent resolution to carry this sense of self-worth and boundaries back home with me. To remember that saying no to others sometimes meant saying yes to myself. And that both were equally important. My return flight landed in Boston on January 5th, bringing me back to winter's cold embrace. My tan skin and sun-lightened hair seemed out of place among the bundled-up crowds at Logan Airport. But something fundamental had changed inside me, something the weather couldn't touch. The first family gathering after my return was a small dinner at my parents' house the following weekend. I arrived feeling calm and centered, ready for whatever reception awaited me. To my surprise, it was normal. Pleasant, even. My mother hugged me and asked genuine questions about Hawaii. My father proudly displayed the Hawaiian coffee I'd brought him on a special shelf in the kitchen. Jackson's boys clamored for stories about volcanoes and surfing. Even Rachel, who had been among the most upset about my Christmas absence, approached me privately. "Your trip looked amazing," she said, scrolling through photos on my phone. "Tom and I are thinking about taking a vacation, just the two of us, this summer. It's been years since we did something like that." "You should," I encouraged her. "Everyone needs time to recharge." The most significant moment came as I was helping my mother clean up after dinner. She handed me a plate to dry and said, almost casually, "Your father and I have been talking. We're thinking about taking that trip to Hawaii we've always talked about. Maybe you could help us plan it?" Since you know your way around now. I'd love that, I told her sincerely. And Melissa, she added, her hand stilling in the soapy water. I'm sorry we didn't respect your plans at Christmas. You were right to stand your ground. Coming from my mother, this was monumental. I simply nodded, words caught in my throat. In the months that followed, our family dynamic continued to shift in subtle but important ways. I was invited to events rather than expected to attend. My input was sought rather than my assistance demanded. When I did offer to help with the children, my siblings expressed genuine gratitude rather than entitled acceptance. I maintained my boundaries firmly but kindly. I still showed up for important family moments, still cherished time with my nieces and nephews, still loved my family deeply. But I no longer allowed myself to be taken for granted or my needs to be dismissed. The following December, as Christmas approached again, I received a surprise email from my family. They had pulled together to book me a spa day and dinner at my favorite restaurant as a holiday gift, explicitly scheduled for after the family gathering, with no childcare expectations attached. Because we know your time is valuable too, the note read. Merry Christmas from all of us. I smiled as I read it, thinking back to that moment a year ago when I'd overheard their plans and finally found the courage to stand up for myself. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is showing them how to treat you properly. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the permission to be treated with respect. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to your family to protect your own well-being? Comment below with your experience. And if you enjoyed this story about setting boundaries and self-respect, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to say no. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all the courage to prioritize your own happiness sometimes. You deserve it.